Tell you what, this story broke yesterday, and there is so much criticism. It's being directed at Michael Jordan, the NBA legend who owns a team with Denny Hamlin, the driver. It's called 23X. Michael Jordan has filed an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR against the sanctioning body for what he calls their communistic business practices. If you're going to run in NASCAR, you have to buy what's called a charter. Mm-hmm. You agree with the charter that whatever the revenues are, NASCAR is the one that comes up with the formula, how the revenue sharing is split. Well, there's a bunch of teams out there that are very upset at the whole charter situation, but yet they keep renewing the charter because they have to stay in business. Michael Jordan and another team, Front Row Motorsports, have filed a joint anti-class action suit against the France family that runs NASCAR, has run it since 1948. They have hired Jeffrey Kessler. I don't know if you know this name. Jeffrey Kessler is one of the great antitrust lawyers who's done work on name and likeness, has done work for the NFL Players Association when it was free agency, has done baseball stuff. This guy knows where the bodies are. This guy is just tough in court. So I read some of the documentation as part of the lawsuit that was revealed yesterday. It was pretty nasty. And they called the leadership of NASCAR like communists. They said they came in and gave them a take it or leave it offer, said they held a gun to their head in negotiations. If you don't want to be in NASCAR, then don't agree to the charter. Michael Jordan's team with Denny Hamlin is of the opinion you're taking a large preponderance of the revenue streams that come from TV networks and from corporate advertising. You're competing against us, and we're trying to get corporate advertising for our cars to pay for research and development, drivers and testing. You're taking all those sponsors too. So Jordan and his people, just what they put on the front pages was just brutal criticism of NASCAR's leadership. Now, it's going to have to weave its way through the courts. He's taken a lot of heat today in the Deep South. The Deep South, where we had the aftermath of this terrible tragedy, hurricanes.
Oh, yeah.
I told you coming in before the show started what NASCAR just did today. NASCAR has turned Charlotte International Speedway, Bristol Speedway, and North Wilkesboro in North Carolina, has turned them into staging centers for the National Guard, for FEMA.
Wow.
They're flying all the helicopters. They're using that as a staging point to load planes and helicopters to ferry them in to western part of North Carolina, to eastern Tennessee and Kentucky, which have just been destroyed by the Hurricane Helene. And so a lot of NASCAR people are bitching that this was the wrong time for Michael Jordan to do this the day before on the heels of all this tragedy in NASCAR's main area, the Deep South. They said, you should have talked this through with the other teams. You should have waited. Now we're dealing with this terrible tragedy. NASCAR's donating volumes of money and food and water for all the FEMA and all those people to fly into these different regions. The Deep South is in terrible, terrible situation. So Jordan's catching a lot of crap. That's story one. If you're into NASCAR, feel free to join us. Story two, this whole Bally Sports thing with the TV things. Mm-hmm. The Padres lost their TV deal 2 years ago. Major League Baseball did a deal to help the Padres financially take their games in-house, and they're doing the whole streaming situation. And then they did the Arizona Diamondbacks. They own the rights to two teams. Bally's been in the middle of bankruptcy, and Bally has presented all these plans about, let us do this and we'll get out of bankruptcy and we'll be able to take care of all the teams we have contracts with. Well, Bally's run into a lot of headwinds from people saying, all you're doing is stringing us along. You're not helping us. Bally yesterday canceled the contracts of 11 more major league teams that we're not going to pay you. Wow. If you want to come back to the table, come back to the table. We'll negotiate down a deal. They canceled Houston, canceled the Cincinnati Reds. The only one they kept, they have one baseball team, Atlanta Braves. They canceled everybody else. MLB, which has gone into the bankruptcy courts and said, these guys are stringing us along. We need commitments from all these teams so we can do what we're doing with the streaming. Look at the success the Padres have had and what's happened in Arizona. We can do this for the Angels are another one that got cut. but this thing has been held up by the bankruptcy courts. So Bally's got a huge problem there. Third item, your San Francisco Giants gave up on Farhan Zaidi, the president of baseball operations, pseudo general manager. They removed him from office. A couple of years ago, he had that 107-win season. You said, wow, look, he rented all these free agents that came together, never came together again. Farm system is still somewhat barren. I missed the playoffs 6 of the 7 years. The 7th year, they won 107 games. Buster Posey has been hired as the president of baseball ops.
Right on.
Legendary player. Said he didn't want to get into management. Somehow he wound up on the board of directors of the Giants. And all of a sudden, he is now the president of baseball operations. They also fired the general manager. They fired some assistant baseball people. So Posey's going to put his own people in place there. And one other note, National Hockey League season opens next week. We talked about, that's the Columbus Blue Jackets logo. We talked about what life would be after Johnny Hockey, after the terrible, tragic passing of Johnny Gaudreau. The National Hockey League Board of Governors and the Players Association just agreed they will allow the Blue Jackets to have a leeway as it relates to being at the salary cap. You have to be at a certain level, expenditure or base floor. Well, they're going to allow Columbus to be below the base floor to start the season because of the death of Johnny Gaudreau. There was all kinds of contractual bonus money paid. And does it count against the cap? Does it not count against the cap? They're allowing Columbus to be below the cap to start the season with a promise somewhere maybe by Thanksgiving they will make player deals to get up to the cap. But they told them the $2 million signing bonus you paid Johnny Hockey, that counts as cap money. Even though he is deceased, you're going to have, that money has to be accounted in the bookkeeping. It counts against your salary cap. I've seen that. I saw that with the San Diego Chargers once upon a time where they lost a player who died in an auto accident and just gotten a big signing bonus. And NFL told them he counts against the cap. He's dead. He counts against the cap. So the NHL makes this deal with the Players Association. We'll give them a break here, but the $2 million signing bonus counts against your salary cap starting next week.
Interesting.
So anyhow, you want to talk NASCAR? Are you a redneck, good old boy? We can talk Bally, talk about your Giants, or talk NHL.
I think it's hilarious that Michael Jordan is calling out the good old boys from the South as a bunch of goddamn communists. It's playing out like a Smokey and the Bandit movie or something here. So this is fantastic. And it's funny. And yeah, they do. They share their revenue stream. So it is kind of a communistic thing. The Bally thing is weird. We've been covering that for the last year or so. But I want to talk a little bit about the Giants and the Blue Jackets. For the Blue Jackets, first of all, I kind of get the bonus money would count against the salary cap as it's accrued, and it's got to be spread out over so many years. What's the word?
Prorated.
Yeah, prorated. But like if let's just say Johnny Gaudreau, I'm gonna make this up, he had a 5-year deal, and this was year number 4. His estate doesn't still get paid on a 5-year deal, do they?
They might. Blue Jackets might take care of the family. That happens.
Yeah, but it would be more of a charitable thing rather than a contractual thing.
True, but the signing bonus is hard money that was paid, so therefore prorated. It still has to count against the cap.
Yeah, because I think even if he was alive and cut, that would still count against the cap. So I understand that part of it. For the Giants, hey, this sounds pretty good. Buster Posey's a sharp young man, and the Giants have been just sort of meh, sort of middling for so long.
Drifting aimlessly. They had the mystical season where they rented all those free agents. They said, wow. I said, but that's a 1-year thing. They come back the next year and they're sub 500.
Yeah, exactly. And Lamont Wade Jr. is not going to win you a World Series.
So that's where we are. Those are hot topics on the table. We try to cover a lot of unique and diverse stuff, try to hit a lot of hot buttons out there.